So, if right now you go to Google Images and look for some wallpapers by typing wallpapers for PC in the search bar, you do not have to scroll too far to find something like this in your results. If you click on one of them, then you end up getting suggestions for even more similar wallpapers. This style is ubiquitous and you've probably come across it sometime in your life. As you're scrolling through a very long list, you might even see the term Firewatch or Firewatch style. And for those of you who don't know, these wallpapers are heavily inspired by the 2016 indie game Firewatch, developed by Camposanto. Now, is this game basically just a walking simulator with beautiful aesthetics? Is that all it's good for? Just pretty wallpapers to embellish your computer? No, not at all. The game, outside of having amazing graphics, delves into interesting human relationships with some of the most realistic dialogues and explorations of the themes of escapism, isolation, romance, the inability of letting things go, all while solving a web of mysteries that elucidates and wonderfully encaptures the paranoia that comes with living a mundane, secluded and isolated life of being a fire lookout in a national park. And the story really is pretty good. I mean, the founders of the game worked on The Walking Dead at Telltale before establishing Camposanto, so they are already familiar with working on story-driven games. Okay, first things first. You can tell why wallpapers from this game are so damn popular. The art style is gorgeous. The team at Camposanto has given a lot of details and behind-the-scenes insights in their blog on how they achieved this look. The lead artist, Jane Ng, has explained the entire process and developmental history in multiple GDC talks, which are available on YouTube if you want to check them out. They even made entire custom shaders and frameworks for all the items and environments, and also procedurally generated the skybox, and it genuinely did pay off. Additionally, there is this simplistic look to the game achieved by manipulating the level of detail. So the things near to you have a proper three-dimensional look, but the further away they are, the more 2D they start to appear, and the simpler their structure and details become, giving every single area of the game the appearance of an illustration. I got a bit curious and looked up Shoshone National Forest on Google Earth, because that's the best I can do for now, next to visiting the place. And honestly, it doesn't really look anything like it. The region in real life is much more flat as compared to the rocky cornucopia of alternating elevations as depicted in the game. But although very well, I'm not looking for absolute realism here anyways. I mean, it's still pretty mountainous, don't get me wrong, and it's all very beautiful to me. When you start the game, you get this sort of prologue where you can make choices that don't really have an effect on the story or the outcome, but simply is there to flesh out your life a bit and make it feel more personal to you. And the backstory here is, to be honest, quite melancholic and tragic. Now, it's no first 5 minutes of Up, but it still carries a lot of emotional weight. Now we're playing in the shoes of Henry, and it recalls the story of him meeting with his wife, Julia, the ups and downs of their relationship, her first episode of memory loss, and the subsequent diagnosis of early onset dementia, which worsens to the point of requiring a permanent medical leave, and dementia slowly taking away Julia from herself. Regardless of the choice you make, it ends up with both of them slowly drifting apart, and eventually Henry, seeing an ad for a job as a fire lookout, with the mundanity and pain of existence bearing upon him, takes up on the offer. As we arrive on our tower, we get a call from our only companion in this game, Delilah, and she, wasting no time at all, jumps straight into prying into her personal life. Now, initially I wasn't that wary of Delilah. She sounded nice and friendly, and a bit too friendly, I suppose. As we are slowly getting sucked into the game and starting our new job, the first question that popped up in my head was, what the f is a fire lookout and what do they do? I mean, the name makes it kinda clear. They look out for forest fires, stationed atop tall buildings like these, called a fire lookout tower, usually perched on elevated areas. Their job is to look for signs of forest fires, like smoke, track it, and also monitor the weather. At the center of the room is this contraption that piqued my interest, and as Delilah is about to explain it...
You use this to spot, you guessed it, What the fuck?
What is it?
Nothing. You use this to... Oh, fuck me!
Good God, language, lady.
Out your west-facing window. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Are those fucking fireworks?
But you don't need to be interrupted from learning about this. So this is called the Osborne Firefinder, and it is a tool installed in pretty much all fire lookout stations, especially during the time the game is set in. It consists of a topographic map centered at the tower's location, surrounded by a metal ring with azimuth graduations divided into 360 degrees, and two different sights, one with delicate crosshairs made of horsehair, and another sight with a slit. You line these two with the smoke to gauge the distance of the fire. However, you need readings from multiple fire lookouts in order to triangulate the location of the fire accurately. Alright, now back into the game. Lighting fireworks illegally is a huge fire hazard, and it only takes a spark to burn acres of forest cover. So we make our way down, trying to shoo away the people responsible for it. As isolated our situation is, the game doesn't really let you dwell on it a lot. You as the player never really feel alone here. The game puts you in situation after situation simply because it's a game, and just roaming around the wilderness doing nothing would be quite boring. However, if you want to experience that, there does exist a free roam option for you. Now the game is quite immersive. There is no fast travel, no objective marker. You only have a map and compass for navigation, and minimal background music as you trek the various picturesque trails. However, their quietness is silenced by conversations with Delilah. Our character is a fish out of the water and does require constant guidance. And the conversations that the characters have are so damn realistic. You hear them stumble their words, hesitate, make corny jokes, and you can feel a relationship building up. Both of the characters have something in common. They are running away from their past. Henry runs away from having to deal with his marriage falling apart, and instead of starting a podcast like every well-adjusted man who needs to discuss his feelings would do, he gets a job away from civilization itself. I'm not even sure that Amazon can deliver a Shure SM7 over there. Did you know that Michael Jackson recorded? Now, Henry's backstory is unknown to us, but Delilah, well, Delilah's a mystery. By piecing together the conversations, I can figure out that she's afraid of commitment and has an alcohol problem, which we can confirm by her being drunk so often on the job, and absolutely loving tequila. So, we find a lot of beer cans and articles of clothing to determine it's two young girls. We kinda scare the teenagers away, or more like creep them out, after a very painful conversation. And as we're returning, we come across a cave, and Henry recalls being a spelunker, but there is a locked door, so we emerge out and spot a shadowy figure looming up above, shining a flashlight to our face and creeping us out. And after reporting the same to Delilah, she just tells us to ignore it. After returning, we find the typewriter on the ground and the cabin completely vandalized. My dad initially went to the teens, and their case isn't helped by the revelation the next day. When we go to check out the wire of the malfunctioning phone line, we find it cut and a lovely message from them. Then we come across their tent, ransacked and destroyed. And as we read the note, it seems as if someone attacked or scared them away. And they assume it was us, as Henry. After a few days, we are informed by Delilah about the teenagers being missing and Henry possibly being the last person to see them. These twins haven't been the only people to suddenly disappear. Delilah recalls a boy named Brian Goodwin, the son of Ned Goodwin, who was an operator on the Twin Forks Tower, our tower. He will live with his father in the Twin Forks Tower against Forest Service regulation. Delilah takes a liking to the boy, who has a strained relationship with his father. Ned would often take him hiking and climbing, but Brian was a nerdy little kid who liked science and playing wizards and wyverns. You know, that classic game where a wizard master... well, that actually sounds kind of cool. Anyways, one day both of them left to never be seen or heard from ever again. As days passes by, the monotony of life takes over. Delilah and Henry's relationship deepens, and you can sense a sweet romance budding.
I mean to get all heavy, but it's been really nice. I wish I was over there.
I wish you were too.
We could sit outside. We could talk without these radios. We could, you know.
What? What could we do?
Well, let me tell you.
And one day she asks us to track down a problem bear. We see a clipboard. Someone has been listening in on our conversations, noting down our movements, locations, and everything, even the details of the massive forest fire. A noise hits our ears, and like a dumbass character in a horror movie, we chase its origin and are ambushed and hit in the head by someone. Regaining our senses, we are in an understandable state of shock and try to look for answers until we encountered a chain link fence, and Henry, visibly shook, angry and wanting to get to the root of the problems, tries to break in. Delilah suggests getting an axe from the team doing a controlled burn, a short hike from there. But when we reach the area, the team is nowhere to be found except snowmobiles, one stuck in a pork pond whose sign has been stolen. We do find an axe and a note, which suggests the fenced area is a research station called Wapiti, and what they're researching is a mystery. By the way, as previously mentioned, this game takes place in 1989, and fun fact, this is the same year when Bob Lazar claimed to have worked in Area 51.
Looks like goddamn Area 51.
Maybe they've got aliens. That'd be exciting.
On reverse engineering alien technology, and said that there exists documents that detail aliens influencing humanity for the past 10,000 years. So without him, there would be no dank memes about this stuff. Delilah, afraid that someone might be listening in on our conversations, at the moment arranges a new radio which she stashes secretly for us to find. And as we break the lock and get inside the research station, we find a wave receiver that detects any radio frequencies and replaces our compass. And amongst all the mess, documents about us, details that hadn't been shared with anyone. Delilah, understandably pissed, suggests burning the place down. And as we're leaving, someone actually sets it on fire, destroying all evidence. The next day, as the wave receiver starts beeping, we follow its directions to find a bag containing the key to the locked door in the cave we previously ventured into. And as we're returning, Delilah mentions spotting us in the tower, except we're not in our tower. When we hurry back, we find a tape stuck to the door that has a recording of our conversation last night, altered to make it sound like we burnt the research station. Even more, the next day Delilah is informed by a ranger who received a call from a man claiming to be Henry that she might know something about the fire in the research station. The sense of paranoia deepens. There is this lingering feeling of dread, as if every single move that you make is being monitored somewhere, like you're a research subject in an alien ship. But there is no one to be found other than the stranger we spotted and the girls who are now missing. There is no one at Wapiti, no other rangers than Delilah and Henry. You don't see any hikers, even the control burn team isn't there. You know, the mention of a control burn team got my research juices flowing a bit. As it turns out, during the initial decades of the National Park Service, all fires were considered detrimental to the forest, and it was the utmost priority to suppress them. Like how all safety regulations are written in blood, firefighting regulations are written with ashes. The Santiago Canyon fire of 1889, a century ago, burning 300,000 acres of forest area. The Great Fire of 1910, which burned 3 million acres of land in Montana and Idaho. At least 78 firefighters lost their lives fighting it. which stoked the flames of fear of future events such as these, and the US Forest Service's official policy was to suppress all of them. And another fun fact, that is when Smokey the Bear was created. Only you can prevent the wildfires. Till ecologists and other experts who had been researching them for a long time led to more refined policies in the 1960s that considered naturally occurring forest fires as primarily caused by dry lightning to be permissible and beneficial for the forest, and the man-made ones worthy of being put out. But why exactly are forest fires helpful? That is because of a lot of reasons. They are a part of the natural life cycle of a forest, the flora dependent upon a natural reset of sorts, like the Reapers from Mass Effect or the Q from All Tomorrows, just a chaotic neutral. Forest fires act as a big reset, destroying the dominance of one particular species in an area and restoring diversity and balance, something very well known to the native populations of these lands. In fact, for a lot of trees, fire is important to their survival. Smaller controlled burns clear away dead trees, branches, dried leaves, undergrass, basically reducing the fuel load, which refers to how much stuff is there to burn in a forest fire. Some plants have even evolved to have fire-resisting capabilities, called pyrophytes, for example the giant sequoia and the lodgepole pine. There's even another category of plants, pyrophiles, who even rely on fires for germination. The lodgepole pine, for example, a fire with moderate heat will pop open the cones and disperse the seeds, leading to its proliferation. After a fire, nutrients are returned back into the soil. It kills off invasive species like beetles that, in their endless gluttony, consume and eradicate large populations of trees. In fact, the mountain pine beetle, killing many trees, leading to a mix of younger and older trees. The younger trees are much shorter, which end up acting as ladder fuel that burns indiscriminately. A mix of wet followed by a dry season led to the formation of dense understory that was dry and prime tinder for many small fires in the Yellowstone region. These small fires merged into larger ones, leading to the devastating Yellowstone fires of 1988, also mentioned in the game by DELILAH. The most common tree that was destroyed and replaced by aspen was the lodgepole pine. Because even though a lodgepole pine relies on fires for germination, if the temperature is too high, it also burns easily due to the amount of pitch it releases. To fight off the mountain pine beetle, the one that ravaged the area, whose population is also controlled by forest fires. But since the policy was forest fire equals bad, it led to an overpopulation of these bugs, leading to this vicious cycle and disturbance of this delicate balance that led to the Yellowstone fires. So, in the game, in a similar vein, the fire that was lit up in Wapiti Station eventually merges with the previous June fire and leads to a catastrophic one engulfing a major part of the Shoshone Park. But who started the fire? Who could it be? The scientists who are not even present there? But why would they even do that? Are we about to uncover a major conspiracy? Do I need to buy some tinfoil? I mean, I didn't even share all this personal information with DELILAH, so they must be using electromagnetic waves to read my mind. Wait, hold on a sec. Let's talk about DELILAH. What's her deal? She mentions working as a fire lookout for the past 13 years. So, 1976, the same year Federal Land Policy and Management Act was passed in Congress that allowed the federal government to designate land for public use, improve environmental regulations, change resource extraction, making it more sustainable. How is it possible that her, who has been working here for so many years, was unaware of the research station? You mean to say that the lady that can see my shorts cannot see the massive fenced area from that vantage point? And she knows I always wear my shorts, but for some reason can't tell if it's me or someone else in my own station? We never even talked to anybody but her, whereas she has a whole list of rangers to talk and lie to. What was the research station researching? It couldn't be that they were illegally extracting some resources from the land and DELILAH kept its existence hidden from the public. which is why she joined the Forest Service in the first place, the same year the bill was passed. And why destroy it after I find out? Wait, she was the one who suggested we burn it all down. And who started the fire anyways? Was it Delilah? How did she manage to get new radios? And why did she hike all the way over here, past my own tower mind you, to put the radio and then hike back when she could have just given it to me in my tower, on the way? Why was she blaming the government so much for the 1988 Yellowstone fires? Because she hates them for passing the Land Act? What resource are they mining in there? Why is there an inaccessible area? Didn't she say the government advertised more after the 1988 fires, leading to eventually me being hired because the budget increased? Did Delilah cause the fires? It seems probable. I mean, where have I heard the name Delilah before? Delilah and Samson, the woman who seduced, beguiled and betrayed him and cut his hair, the source of his power on the command of the Philistine chiefs? Am I being betrayed here? Who was the one she was talking to? And why did she seem so pissed when I questioned her about it? Oh, I think I know what it is. Delilah has Death Star's eyes, powered by kyber crystals. That's how she sets the racer station on fire. And the fires in the previous year. Don't believe me? The largest group of fires was called the Snake River Complex. The largest fire in that group? Shoshone Fire. Shoshone, you know, where the game takes place. Oh my god, they're mining.
Deep substrate foliated calcite.
You know what that means. I must be a Jedi. As much as I like for these to be the answers, I mean, not really, but it's kinda interesting to think about. There is no grand conspiracy here. As the fires merge and rage, we need to be evacuated out. Till we find, or more like are led to, Ned Goodwin's little lair. He was the one whom we saw looking at us from up above as we exited the cave, probably being alerted by Henry howling like a wolf and singing Africa by Toto.
I bless the rains down in Africa!
He was the one that ransacked and vandalized our tower. That's how he got all that information on us, as well as listening to our conversations. He then tore up the teens' tent, stole their underwear and tried to frame them for cutting up the cable, as well as destroying our stuff. The abandoned research station was just a research station. The documents in there were all typed up by Ned using this old typewriter. It was him who attacked us near the pond, the one who pretended to be Henry when he reported Delilah had something to do with the fire. In detailed documents we find inside his cave, it lays out his plan to turn Delilah and Henry against each other. He psychologically profiled both of us, in which Henry was mentioned as being prone to manipulation, and it was him who set ablaze the Wapiti station, not Delilah's Death Star eyes. Thankfully, we are informed that the teens are safe and not missing. They had been arrested for stealing a farmer's tractor and taking it for a joyride. But why would he do this? As Delilah mentions before, Brian and Ned didn't exactly have a great relationship. Ned, the ex-member of the United States military and possibly a war vet, didn't really understand his son. The nerdy and athletic Brian didn't exactly fit in his very limited mold of an ideal son. He would take Brian against his desires to hike or climb various parts of Shoshone, against the rules, and Delilah didn't report them because she liked Henry. In one of these expeditions inside the cave, Brian, who didn't nail his pitons correctly or deep enough, falls to his death. Ned, unwilling or perhaps unable to answer questions related to his son's death, decides to just live there in the wilderness rather than take responsibility for his actions. When I was researching and writing the script of this video, I thought of buying some books that would offer me a similar vibe as the game. I personally have been a pretty outdoorsy person myself and have done my own share of hikes, treks and mountain climbs, which often have been prescribed as humbling, life-changing, introspective experiences. You know, go touch grass, but they didn't really do any of those things for me. The turmoil within my mind would never drift away in the cool, fresh air of the wilderness. The storm raging inside wouldn't get any quieter in the serenity of nature. So books like Walden or Into the Wild, while being similar to the game on a surface level interpretation, would not hold much likeness upon deeper inspection. You see, the game's theme is mostly about escaping one's problems in the wilderness and how that doesn't really solve anything or even change you as a person. The three main characters, the protagonist Henry, the deuteragonist Delilah, and the antagonist Ned, share something in common with each other. They are all treating the wilderness as an escape from their lives. Henry, unable to deal with the worsening state of his wife, his deteriorating relationship with her, and regardless of the choices you made during the prologue, all of them led to his wife still getting dementia and Henry's mental condition being turbulent before he decided to become a forest lookout. It acted as the perfect escape. Delilah, well, her past is a mystery, but from what we can deduce, has commitment issues and is clearly wary of serious relationships. She recalls the story of her aunt Kathy, who married a stockbroker and after 40 years finds out that he had been cheating on her with a real estate broker for 15 years, and compares her life to that of another aunt, Judy, who traveled the world and dated many interesting men, which she finds to be the more desirable choice. Her relationship with Javier, if true to how she recalls, just fell apart to no fault of her own. As stated on the behavioral analysis done by Ned, she has avoidance issues, which we can attest to as she avoids giving us information, denies knowing anything about the teens when questioned by the police, to avoid answering questions, avoids meeting us during the events of the game and perhaps after as well, as she even avoids directly answering Henry's proposal to meet in Denver. It can be presumed that she has been working as a forest lookout to avoid people altogether. On top of that, in Ned's lair, we find another document noting that Delilah has a skewed perception of personal history. She has multiple lovers while having a long-term boyfriend, a thing she denies, but Ned isn't exactly the most reliable narrator either. Speaking of Ned, after losing his son in a climbing accident, he escapes the responsibility of having to report the incident, answering questions and living with the guilt of indirectly causing his son's death. He chooses to live as a recluse in the wilderness, stealing food from the stashes, spying on other rangers to hide the literal skeleton in his closet. He assaults Henry, the teenage girls, vandalizes their tent, the Twin Forks Tower where Henry lives, where he once lived with his son, plants evidence, destroys evidence, sets the research station on fire, a fire that will probably destroy a massive section in the forest, and still decides to literally escape his problems by venturing even deeper into the forest, then to face his demons head on. We don't even get to meet Delilah at the end. She evacuates before us, and all we're left with is her tower full of personality, her work shirt, drawings of us, Shelley Duvall, books, crossword puzzles, and of course, the Pope on sign. She is the one who stole it. During the entire game, we don't even see another human face. Ned and the teenagers are just silhouettes, the only non-shadowy figure being the rescue guy, covered entirely in gear. But it really did stem from the developing team being really small, and doing lip syncing, animation for NPCs, and hiring even more voice actors is expensive. So it was a cost-cutting measure. But hey, they killed two birds with one stone. And at the end, when the credits hit and the angelic voice of Etta James singing I'd Rather Go Blind plays, I couldn't help but be moved by the experience. I know that many people were dissatisfied by the ending. They were expecting a grand revelation at the end, and I can't really blame you if you felt the same, but I believe what the ending highlights is the fact that we don't always get what we want. I know I made a very originally obnoxious point, but the fact that we never get to see Delilah or meet her, or even know what happened to Julia or Ned Goodwin, and even if the game sets up this giant mystery, that gets solved rather unsatisfactorily. What it brings into the limelight is the often mediocre and disappointing realization that there rarely is a grand mystery behind what ails us. The answers to our problems are mostly very rudimentary, common and uncomplicated. But it is the human desire for a grand adventure or a monumental conspiracy to unburden us from undertaking any introspection or critical analysis of our own actions. But the truth is, the answer often lies within, and the banality of life overshadows the hero's journey we undertake every day in our daydreams. But that isn't to say that reality is always boring either, or that the answers we find to the mysterious phenomena spiraling our brain into an ever-deepening chasm of paranoia in this game are boring either. I actually find the revelation of Ned being the only responsible person quite interesting, even when so ordinarily grounded. Not all red herrings are devious in nature, and neither is every ending in dire need of closure. I like that Henry never gets to meet Delilah. I like to think that if I were in his shoes, I would try to go back to Julia and her family in Australia. If not that, just move on from life and do something meaningful. I cannot imagine what it's like to be Ned and lose a child from something not entirely our fault, but at the same time not clearly absolved of all sins either. And Delilah, well, I think balancing people avoidance issues and a desire to travel the world and meet and date new people all the time is a Sisyphean task, and I can't imagine Sisyphus being happy here. When I mentioned Firewatch's striking art style and graphics and the various artists who have taken inspiration from it, it was partial information. We often tend to either forget, overlook, or underestimate how much of art, science, and many other fields are reliant on the works of giants whose shoulders we stand upon. When the United States was reeling from the effects of the Great Depression, Franklin D. Roosevelt signed in the New Deal in 1933 to lift up the American economy. Later on in 1935, as a part of the second half of the New Deal, the Works Progress Administration was created to help provide employment to many in the public sectors. It was especially consequential for many artists, musicians, and filmmakers who would have been unemployed otherwise. This led to, amongst other things, the creation of trails, campgrounds, and other amenities in the national parks of America. And in order to promote the various works done by the WPA, they commissioned numerous artists to create several posters. These posters are now infamous in the world of graphic design. And speaking of infamous graphic design, if you've ever seen these Star Wars posters, or this My Neighbor Totoro poster, or this one of The Last of Us, these were all created by the wonderful graphic designer Ollie Moss, who would join the founding duo of Camposanto, Sean Veneman and Jane Rodkin from Telltale Games, alongside Nels Anderson, who previously worked on Mark of the Ninja. Ollie, then inspired by the bold, clean colors of the New Deal posters, created the style of the game, thus finishing a complete circle of the art of a game that is about a fire lookout of the National Park Service being done by a person inspired by the posters that were created by various artists commissioned by the New Deal, which ended up doing monumental work to develop said parks. When I started making this video, I didn't expect myself to read so much about forest fires or the important work done by fire lookouts and all the other members of organizations protecting nature around the world. I think it made me more appreciative of the amount of labor needed to safeguard Earth's biodiversity and the nature that gives us life. So I urge you guys to check out the various agencies and organizations working on protecting the forests and wildlife of your country or region. Before I bid my farewells, I like to share some articles that I came across that explore the game's meaning far better than what I could muster or even attempt to do. Here's one by Elma R. on Medium, putting my shared thoughts into much better words, and another by Nathan Ditum that details the developmental process of the game. I also highly recommend reading the blog of developers Camposanto, They are always a treasure trove of wonderfully written insights into the world of indie game development, and that is the place I did most of my research related to Firewatch's development. And of course, thank you for watching the entire video. Do share, like, and subscribe, or comment down if you wish to share your thoughts with me. Ciao ciao.